Hey ladies, welcome back to another episode of the Balancing Hormones Naturally podcast. So, we have Kaitlin on today, and if you guys don't know Kaitlin, she is our co-coach in Hormone Reset Program and Hormone Reset Premium Access. And Kaitlin saves my life because she
We
helps
save
me out so
others.
much. Um, you went through the Hormone Reset program back in its infancy, which was a long time ago.
Mhm.
And you have been coaching with me for 2 years, I think now.
Yeah, I think we're on our third year now that it's
Dang.
2023.
I think that's
It's
making us
wild.
old.
I know.
Um, so yeah,
Time
you've been here for
flies.
a while. And so you have your bachelor's in exercise science and nutrition, and Kaitlin is finishing up training in hair mineral analysis, and then going to help guide her so that she can help us, with taking on more clients when it comes to labs in the Hormone Reset Premium Access, just because right now we're literally limited by the amount of people we can take because, there's only we want to make sure that you are getting premium access treatment, and that includes labs. So um, what we thought we would do is Kaitlin decided to jump on as a guinea pig because I feel like my tests are not as informative right now because I'm either pregnant or breastfeeding. So they're not very helpful, I feel
They're
like, to the
different.
general public. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we ran Caitlin's hair mineral analysis and Dutch panel a little bit ago, and
Mhm.
we're going to talk over what came up with her results and how we correlated that with her symptoms and the results that she's had implementing her protocol from that. And then we're actually running retests right now to just see the improvement, because retests are so cool, because it's uncovering layers of the onion. So my favorite test to retest is the hair mineral analysis, because as you balance those four main minerals, which we're going to talk about, you uncover all of these super cool things. So I'm going to let you take the floor for a second, Kaitlin, if you want to just share about, the symptoms you were kind of dealing with before we ran those tests, which Kaitlin, up until this point, well, you still are. It's not like you stopped. But you were killing it at your foundations. Like you've been balancing your blood sugar, you've been focusing on sleep and um eating for your cycle and exercising for your cycle and stress management. And you can share as little as you would like, but you did go through a very traumatic event, which
Mhm.
obviously we're going to see that on your labs. So, um, also, I just want to side note, if you guys are watching the video, I'm going to just keep saying, like, are you watching the video on YouTube? We match. Like, I did not plan
Oh,
that, but
we
like, we are just
do.
purpling it up. So go
You
us.
channeled me this time.
I did. I did.
I love it.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay. So, yeah, um let's talk about some of the symptoms first that I was going through. And like you said, I was really good with my foundations, having gone through the Hormone Reset Program several years ago. Balancing my blood sugar, taking care of my liver, especially because I was on birth control for 13 years.
That's so
And
long.
so long. And no one
Yeah.
ever said a word to me like that was an issue.
Yeah.
They're just like, you'd go in, they'd ask if you want more, no
Mm-hmm.
questions asked. So I came off birth control cold turkey. And because I started learning about all the side effects and the long term health effects, and I was just like, oh my gosh, get this out of me. I don't want anything to do with this. So
Yeah.
I was on the Implanon, which later became Nexplanon, I
Mm-hmm.
think, if I have, or that's flip flopped. I can't remember. So I had it removed, and then about 4 years or 4 months to the day is when I was having severe gut health issues. My acne was so bad. I all of a sudden I gained 7 pounds of weight overnight one time. And, back then I was like, oh my gosh, like, how am I gaining this much fat? Now I know that it can't be that, but it was essentially inflammation.
Yeah.
And so I just knew from what I learned through the Hormone Reset Program, liver health, super important, gut health, super important. Exercising with my cycle is something that I sort of explored on my own
Mhm.
and started to learn more about that because I was also powerlifting at the time. And
Mhm.
I was just getting into powerlifting, and I gained 10, at least 10 pounds. It was probably closer to 15 in a very short amount of time. And it was just funny because all the guys were like, oh, you're putting on muscle. It's
Ugh,
awesome. And
yeah.
I'm just like, where? Like, I don't look super ripped. Like, I just feel like a balloon. Like, this is not muscle. Something is wrong with me. Um, so yeah, paid very closely attention to my foundations, but then
Yeah.
in 2021, in October, my dad passed away and he actually committed suicide. So that
Yeah.
was very traumatic, very, like, I would have never guessed that that's the way he went out. But, as anyone
Yeah.
would going through that, that can be very stressful, very traumatizing. I
Yeah.
kind of just put my life on the back burner for the next year. I was still doing what I could to focus on my foundations, because by that point, those were already habitual to me. Like, nothing
Mhm.
was really changing that. So then I kind of took a break. Well, not yet. So then in April of 2022, yes, because it's 2023, I was training for powerlifting nationals, and
Mhm.
I got a back injury. I threw out my lower back while I was deadlifting, and that put me out from lifting. Like,
Mhm.
I couldn't walk. It was so, it threw off my routine very
Yeah.
badly because, exercising is my life and I love it so much. And then all of a sudden, take that away from me, I
Mhm.
didn't know what to do. And I just had to focus on healing. And
Yeah.
I could barely work out. So at this point, I was just, trying to walk and stay on top of movement in some way or form. But it took a while for my back to be healed. And I think a lot of that too is just stress, the stress of losing my dad. And,
Yeah.
we all have stress that we don't think is stressful.
Mhm.
Maybe that's stress in your diet, stress during school, stress in your family, just like all sorts of things that we just kind of push under the rug and ignore. And we're like, no, I'm fine. Like, I'm not stressed. But then it can
Yeah.
come out in the form of an injury or gut
Yeah.
issues and other health issues. So lots of like stress and changes going on during that
Mhm.
time. And so when we tested, we did my first HEMA and Dutch testing at the end of 2022. And that's when you could see like everything was starting to make sense to me because I've always been the type of person where, like, I can be very numb to emotions. It's not that I don't feel emotions, but I'm really good at pushing them aside, working, like, ignoring it, I would
Yeah.
say, and just like that type of person that's like, no, I'm not stressed.
Mhm.
Um, and mind you, I was also going to talk therapy
Mhm.
the entire year of 2022. I've been going for 4 years now. So that's, even though that's been really helpful, my HEMA test still showed that my body was under stress. Um, and the fact that it's always been hard for me to lose weight. And I would say ever since I came off birth control. When I was on
Mhm.
birth control, like, it felt like life was much simpler, to be completely honest.
Mhm.
But that wasn't my body functioning at its optimal potential. So ever since I came off, it was always difficult to lose weight. I was able to heal my acne, which was nice, just through gut health. But
Mhm.
my HEMA tests, like, I still had times of bloating. I still was
Mhm.
gassy from certain foods and stuff like that. So I knew my gut health wasn't still at
Mhm.
its optimal function. Um, and then anxiety, a lot of that can just come from the events that I went through, but also
Yeah.
just an imbalance in minerals, which I
Mhm.
learned after testing. So I feel like those were the biggest things that I
Mhm.
struggled with: the difficulty losing weight, the anxiety,
Mhm.
some still lingering gut issues, even though I had
Mhm.
been focusing on gut health for several years. Granted, it
Mhm.
wasn't as bad as it used to be, but there was still just like some lingering
Yeah.
problems, which we later found that testing was able to give me answers to. Um, and then just like with my Dutch test, which I know we're going to go over, but there were some
Yeah.
markers there that were kind of good to see.
Mhm.
Like just the fact that because I had been taking care of my liver
Mhm.
for several years now, things were functioning the right way. My hormones were being metabolized the right way, so on and
Yeah.
so forth. So it was just really cool to see. And I bet that if we would have tested right when I came off birth control versus now,
Mhm.
like I can't even imagine
Mhm.
what it used to be like, just with how many issues I had and was
Yeah.
going through.
It's so crazy. So just like to do a little bit of a recap here. When you were just doing the foundations and everything that we teach in the Hormone Reset Program, I know you got regular ovulations. So you weren't even ovulating up until that
Mm-hmm.
point. So I know everyone's like, but why didn't the foundations work? And they did. Like they got you
Mm-hmm.
very, very far. Like your skin was
Yeah.
clearing up, just seeing the difference in your skin from before and after the Hormone Reset Program. You were regularly
Mm-hmm.
ovulating.
Yep.
Um, Digestion was so much better. You
Mm-hmm.
had made all of these improvements, but you were like, what is the next step? Like, how can I'm feeling better, but I feel like maybe I could feel even like better. Is there a next level
Exactly.
up? And when you were saying like everything seemed so easy on birth control, I think it's so tempting for women to be like, let me just go back on it because things
Yeah.
are so bad off of it. Um, and it's hard to kind of look at it like that, but it is simply a band-aid, right? So it's like whether you choose to come off now or whether you're choosing to come off at a different time, like it is a band-aid. So those symptoms are going to come out full force, and the longer you are on, probably the worse they're going to be, right? That's a
Mm-hmm.
longer time that you are birth control has been shown to mess up your gut. It's been shown to compromise your gut microbiome. It's been shown um to suppress your hormones and deplete your minerals. And I mean, it literally is a known carcinogen. Literally
Yeah.
known carcinogen. And so I think, knowing that, like, you need to be given these answers. You're When you have all these period issues and your doctor's like, well, it was fine on birth control, so let's just go back on that. Well, that's not fixing anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And can you imagine if you had come off, it's always recommended just come off and you can have a baby next month, right? Like
Yeah.
you weren't even ovulating. Like that would never
Right.
have worked, right?
Right.
And it's depleting you of all these necessary nutrients that you actually need to support your body during pregnancy. And then I have women that come off of it as they're going into menopause, and it is just horrific
Mm-hmm.
because you go from your estrogen's already like suppressed because let's say you're on the hormonal birth control. And so when you go through menopause, right, your estrogen's coming down. So you're coming from this synthetic estrogen and not even to like somebody who's ovulating and producing any estrogen. You're going to menopause levels of estrogen. It's like you jump off the estrogen cliff. Not great in terms of symptoms. So I
Yeah.
think, being aware of these side effects is really important because um, you're just not told that, it's over 50% of women that are on birth control are actually on it for period issues. I think the exact number is like 68%. Don't quote me on that number. I haven't looked at the exact number in a couple months. So that's crazy to me, right? And then on top of that, um, 50% actually come back to their doctor for side effects
Mm-hmm.
within 1 year. And then it's like, oh, let's just try a different one, or let's put you on anti-anxiety meds or whatever. It's just
Mm-hmm.
symptom upon symptom. So yeah, let's go ahead and kind of look at your your HTMA here. So if you're watching
The
the
fun
video,
stuff.
yeah, you guys can um, pop on and see my screen. Woot woot. Um, and just a little disclaimer here. I'm not going to go over Caitlin's specific protocol because I just I just don't think that is safe. Number one, I think we should always remember that what I put every single client on is very individual based off of their history, based off like when you become Hormone Reset Premium Access client, right? And we're running labs, you fill out so many forms because I need to know the nitty gritty. What's your medical history? What is your lifestyle? What's your nutrition look like? What have you done in the past? What supplements are you on? Medication? Because that is going to impact how I read this test. Like, if you just read this test at surface face value, for example, let's say you look at this and we're looking at your four main minerals. So when you look at an HTMA, you always start with the four main minerals: calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium. Think about them as your pyramid. So it's the bottom and upon which we build the rest of them, right? Now, um, what we have going on here, if you looked at her calcium, for example, it says it's 259. Now, if you look at that in reference range of what is considered optimal, which is about 42 to 63, that we would like to see on a hair test, you would go, whoa, your calcium is so high, Kaitlin. That's the issue, right? You need to figure out where you're getting in calcium or whatever. But that's not the issue. In terms of calcium, when we see this in a HTMA, when it is above 150, it's what we call a calcium shell, okay? And when we have this calcium shell, your body is pushing this calcium into your hair, into your arteries, instead of into our bones in our teeth. And the issue that we have with this is, you obviously aren't absorbing it, right? It's not doing what we need it to do. And our calcium controls our nervous system. Thyroid hormone is very dependent upon calcium being bioavailable. Insulin release is dependent upon calcium being available. Okay. It helps regulate our cell permeability. It's important for blood clotting, right? So it's not high. You have a loss, and it is in a calcium shell. And we see this typically due to trauma. Calcium is a very, very emotional mineral. Okay. So your body is under stress, an acute state of stress. I would say your dad dying definitely quantifies as an acute state of stress.
Yeah.
And calcium is numbing. Okay. So your body is trying to take care of you, right? Our body is always trying to take care of us, right? So when we look at these tests and we just go, what's wrong with my body? My body is so broken. My hormones are all over, my minerals are all over. You need to come back. You need to come back and be like, okay, your body is always trying to take care of you, right? It's always trying to save you. So at its root, like, why would calcium be doing this, right? It's trying to take care of you, right? It's an emotional mineral. It's a sedative mineral. Okay. So it really acts as like this psychological buffer element. So, if you are really, really stressed, your body is pushing out that loss of calcium into the hair and the arteries because it's a numbing mineral. And when you reach above that 150 and you're in that calcium shell, what is very often like what happens is that you kind of feel almost like you are outside your body watching what's going on. So very emotionally numbing, a lot of social withdrawal. You're like, you can feel the emotions, like what's going on, but you're also just kind of watching what's going on. And I will also tell you, the first time I ran an HTMA, um, after my brother passed away, my calcium was through the roof. Like, it was so high. I'm pretty sure my calcium was in the 300s. It was high.
Yeah.
And that's what stress and trauma can do. And there are some people where it's like, if they are super stressed, um they will, be in this calcium shell. Maybe their calcium is high until your body has nothing left and you go into what we would call four lows, where the minerals are just tanked. Um, this case, this scenario, which we're looking at right now, um, is a lot easier to come out of than four lows. When I have clients where all of their minerals are tanked across the board, um, it's very, very hard to come out of, especially depending on how long you've been in there, because, most of the time it's very connected to something like mold illness, something like, Lyme disease, or like extreme, just long term stress. Um, and you did the work here emotionally, but I will say that is one of the hardest things for people when they see, whatever their mineral pattern is, especially if it's connected to emotions and needing to work through some things. It's like, I don't want to do that. I'll take the supplements and I'll do the lifestyle, but I don't want to deal with the emotional side of things. But unfortunately, or fortunately, that is a big suppression of healing. You
Mhm.
have to be able to walk through the emotion right now. Like, the calcium is helping numb you, right?
Mhm.
And to get through that, you can't just kind of hop over it. You got to go through it. So when we went on your protocol to help break your calcium shell and bring it down back into your bones and your teeth, we did talk a lot about symptoms that can come up, like a lot of crying, a lot of like those emotions are going to come back up. And I'm like, you have to make sure you have a plan in place. So we were like, okay, if these symptoms crop up, these are some changes we're going to make in our protocol to slow it down. But you also need to make sure that you continued going to therapy, that you had that support system, and let them know, emotions may get a little rocky.
And they
Um,
definitely did once I
yeah,
started my protocol. I remember there were days where I was just like, like it almost felt like PMS, like I was just
yeah,
crying for no reason. But
mm-hmm,
then when I thought about, my protocol, and I'm like, wow, okay, this is how it's supposed to be working. It's fine.
yeah,
I'm fine. I'm going to be okay. Like, it was just very reassuring to know that
mm-hmm.
what I was doing was working how it was supposed to be.
Oh, hold on. Siri just decided to like talk to me for some reason. Literally,
Did
that
I say
app.
Siri?
Shh.
Oh.
um, I'm telling you, I try and get that aspect of my phone to work and it never
Uh-huh.
works. But do you know when it works? Just randomly on
When you don't need
podcasts.
it.
So
That's
dumb.
hilarious.
Um, I have a client right now who has extreme copper toxicity, and copper toxicity is copper toxicity is one of those metals that we need a little bit of, but at higher levels it causes a lot of mental health issues like extreme anxiety, depression. Uh I mean, it causes so many gut issues. Copper is, horrible. It's just so bad in terms of toxicity. And she started her protocol and she goes, oh my gosh, I'm a hot mess. She's like, I just can't stop crying. And so I'm like, okay, you need to stop this. You need to slow down this, and you need to up this part of your protocol. And so she did, and she messaged me 2 days later and she's like, okay, I feel normal again. It's like, okay, there we go. Now let's, like, you have to get rid of the copper. We don't want to leave that around, but we also wouldn't like it if you weren't a hot mess and feeling horrible for however long your copper protocol is. So
Right.
there's definitely a juggling act here. Um
Well, and just to
and
bounce off of that
yeah.
real quick, like, this is why it's also important to work with a practitioner or someone and not just receive a protocol and
Mm-hmm.
have them send you on your way, because
Yep.
if you're a hot mess, you need to be able to talk to your practitioner about it. And
Yep.
you need someone to explain to you exactly what's going to happen. And
Mm-hmm.
like, even in my case, with me being extra emotional, it was nice to just, like you said, we had that plan in place.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's one of the big benefits of working one on one with someone instead of just like getting your test results and trying to find
Mm-hmm.
someone to explain it to you and then you're on your
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Well, and on top of that too, I'm actually baffled by the amount of people that come to me with labs that they've had run or by other um, people, and they just tried to treat the test results instead of, you have to know why. Like, why
Mhm.
is your calcium high? We become really good friends in Hormone Reset Premium
Yeah.
Access, because you'll hear me be like, so what has gone on in the past that would cause, calcium to be this high? We have to figure it out. We
Mhm.
can't just, assume. And I think that that is, like you said, it's very important to work with somebody. And I think this is why I don't do one-off labs. People are like, can I just get labs run with you? I'm like, no, you cannot, because labs are just a huge part of a puzzle, but they are a part of the puzzle. And I think it's
Mhm.
such a disservice to people to like give them a lab and give them a protocol for their lab and not help them with the
Right.
foundations and everything else that got them to the results that lab showed us. I just think that's a disservice. um and the other thing I kind of want to touch on here is, people are like, well, my hair test looks very different than my blood test. It's like, yes, that's true. Because your blood is always trying to stay at homeostasis. Okay, blood wants to be at homeostasis, so it will pull or deposit minerals into the tissues to try and stay at homeostasis. So when we start looking at, significant ratios and things like that, um, it actually can show up in your hair weeks and months before it would actually show up in a blood test. So hair tests can actually be very preventative in that sense, which is really nice. And especially with magnesium, for example, only about 1% of that shows up in the blood, because that's not actually where magnesium lives, right? And so you can't really get a great accurate reading based off of a blood test, which is why I really like the hair mineral analysis. Um, which brings us right into over here into our hair mineral, our magnesium, which is one of our second main minerals. And magnesium, you've probably heard me talk about this all the time, because 78% of women in the US are deficient in magnesium, right? Magnesium, your magnesium was at 24. Ideally, it should be about a 6. Again, if you were looking at this, if you were looking at this,
Oh, it's so high.
yes, I don't need magnesium. And
Stop
this is
taking
what,
it.
right? This just yanks my chain, because um I I love the hair mineral analysis. I love it, love it, love it, love it. It is only as powerful as the person reading it. Because if you do not know how to look at this test as a whole, like, someone asked me, they're like, why can't I just buy this like online? I see a place to buy it online. Like, um why is it important to like go through someone who is trained to read it? Because I don't know, there's some people that try and base other people's tests off of their test, and I'm like, don't do
Good
that.
luck.
I have spent so long taking multiple courses on this from um so many people, because I think HTMA is such a valuable tool. But if you were going to, for example, look at this and go, oh my gosh, my magnesium's so high, like, it's so high, I need to stop taking magnesium.
Right.
But you need to correlate this with your other minerals. Okay. So, for example, one of the minerals that I correlate with is calcium. If calcium is this high of a loss, if calcium has this shell, it pushes out magnesium. That is their relationship. Okay. Another one that I look at is potassium. What do we need potassium for? We need it to actually absorb magnesium. So I'm looking at this, I'm going, wow, you really have no potassium, Kaitlin. And your calcium is a loss. So therefore, magnesium is a loss, right?
Mhm.
Now, we would look at this differently if those mineral ratios were different. So again, like, you can't just compare one test to the other. You have to um, compare the minerals with what you're seeing. So we know that magnesium's a loss. Now, does this mean we're just going to up her magnesium dosage? No, we're actually not going to up her magnesium dosage. We're going to look at bringing up the other minerals that help you absorb magnesium. We're going to actually focus on breaking that calcium shell, because as we bring down calcium, not bring it down, but deposit it back into the bones and the teeth, that's going to help absorption of magnesium. We're going to look at other forms of getting in magnesium. Maybe we're going to do more topical versus internal, like, there's so many different strategies here. But when she has this massive loss of magnesium here, you guys can all take a massive guess at to what symptoms she's going to be having, but it's going to be fatigue, PMS symptoms, depression is a really big one, confusion. And so you're probably like, yep, check mark, check mark, check mark.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to have all of those symptoms. A lot of times people will resonate with 2 out of like the 10, but there are some people that also resonate with all 10.
All of them.
Um, okay, we're going to quickly touch on 2 more of these minerals, and then there's so much more to this test, but I don't want this episode to be like 20 hours long.
It easily
Which
could be.
yeah. When I always send these videos, so I'll do a screen video, like a screen recording of the test, explaining it and walking through protocols for everyone in Hormone Reset Premium Access. And there are some of these, like, I think the longest one to date, I did send over like almost an hour long video, because like there was just that much that I wanted to walk them through with on the test. But quickly, sodium over here is our battery. That's how I think about sodium. Sodium is an extracellular mineral. So when it's high, it's not actually a loss. It is regulated by your adrenal glands. And like I said, it's a battery. Okay. Now, sodium, one of the big things is it's very volatile. So it's actually very easy to change, like to make it go up and down. And stress is one thing that will really, really drive up when you're actually in the moment of acute stress. That will really drive up sodium. So, that's something that was kind of helpful to look at here with Kaitlin. It's like, okay, potentially you aren't actually in this state of acute stress at the moment. Maybe this is more of like a chronic thing that's going on. But sodium should ideally on an HMA, we like to see it about 21 to 24-ish. And when it is this low, one of the big things that you have, the symptom is abdominal bloating, because sodium affects your stomach acid levels. So when you have low stomach acid levels and you have low sodium, this is going to be affecting your digestion and absorption of food, right? So then that means you probably are going to have issues with all your other minerals because your stomach acid is low. Now, we don't stop here. We don't just go, oh, cool, your stomach acid is low. Let's raise it. Let's give you some HCl. Like, no. Why is her stomach acid low? Is it just because she has low sodium? Does she have H. pylori, which is a bacterium that resides in your stomach that lowers your sodium? Like, let's figure out why. Let's just not tell her to take copious amounts of Celtic sea salt, right? And then potassium, I go back and forth. I think every single one of the 4 main minerals is my favorite mineral. But potassium holds a special place in my heart because potassium is your stress mineral and it sensitizes your cell to your thyroid hormone. So ideally you should be at about a 13. You are at a 5, or you were. I don't think you're there anymore. So a lot of times when potassium is this low, I'm not diagnosing you with hypothyroidism by any long stretch of the imagination, but when potassium is this low, it sensitizes your cell to your thyroid hormone. So what's sensitizing your cell to your thyroid hormone if your potassium is literally less than half of what it's supposed to be, right? So you can have a lot of symptoms of hypothyroidism without it ever showing up on a lab, because you're going to get what's called cellular hypothyroidism before you get glandular. So before it's going to show up in that blood work, right? So this again, preventative. How cool is it that we can then be like, okay, let's fix these minerals, let's fix these ratios to help support your thyroid. And the other thing with potassium is it's your stress mineral. The more stressed you are, the more depleted it gets. So you got to bring it up, and it helps with your absorption of magnesium. So when potassium is this low, what happens is you have a lot of symptoms like constipation or water retention, so feeling really puffy, blood sugar issues, skin issues, And
Okay.
one of the big ones I see is allergies and irregular heartbeats, actually, which,
Mm,
yeah, the irregular heartbeats is one that always,
interesting.
like scares everybody. And they're like, all of my heart stuff came back normal. I don't understand why I'm having these irregular heartbeats and things like that. And so, um, really going back to like, what are your minerals looking like and things like that. Um, so I am not going to, I mean, we could dive so much more into this test, just in terms of like cobalt and liver and significant ratios and all of that kind of stuff. But um, I do want to look a little bit at your Dutch. So I am going to pull up your Dutch here, um, just so we can see. And I'm pretty sure I think I successfully switched tabs. Did
You
I?
did.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, go Leah. Okay.
We can
Um
see that. We can see the top half.
okay. So this is an
There you go.
overview. We're going to scroll down to here. So when you're looking at a Dutch test, the star on the left is low, the star on the right is high. Purple is postmenopausal. Um, So, some things that we kind of just looked at overall, that this is just telling us from this snapshot. Your estrogen levels actually look really, really great, in terms of their level. And the other thing that we noticed is that you were metabolizing your hormones primarily down your 2OH pathway, which we really, really like to see. So all of that was great. We could do a little bit better job of methylating, but overall, it wasn't bad. But we did see that, we could do a little bit of a better job methylating. And then there's a very, like, over here, I'm just going to change topics really quick. Um, if you are watching, I hope you're watching the video. I'm looking at her DHEAS and her testosterone. So when we look at DHEAS, the sulfation, right, when that is significantly lower than testosterone and androsterone, for example, we know that you're having trouble sulfating, which is, phase 2 liver detox, right? And it's actually not significantly lower. So we're like, okay, we're not dealing with a ton of issues with sulfation, which is really, really good, right? So
Okay.
phase two is
Yep.
doing okay. Kaitlin does a great job with getting her amino acids and taurine and, all that good stuff in from her food. But we could do a better job with methylation, right? And methylation does have a lot to do with MTHFR gene mutation, right? So, that could be one of the things that was an issue here. It could also be something with her COMT gene. All of this comes in, if you're just kind of looking at an overview, which is hence why you like to know the medical history of your client. Because, if they have these gene mutations, or this will help you look into those gene mutations, that's really going to change, my protocol versus like, no, you don't have those. You just have zero liver support in your life or something like that. So
Hmm.
very important to kind of look at. But, overall, I would say that your androgens are still a little higher than I personally like to see in an optimal range. So then we start digging as to like, what is driving those things up, and some things that can do that are, parasites, you know, parasites, inflammation, stress, alcohol is another really big one. All of these things can impact that. So then you go down the rabbit hole of, working with your client and talking and being like, okay, where do we think this is what's going on, so that we can really start to, figure that out. Something that I did really like to see, is that you weren't favoring your alpha pathway, you were favoring your beta pathway, which is really great. Alpha pathway makes your androgens way more androgenic in terms of like unwanted hair growth, unwanted hair loss. I see this a lot with PCOS clients, where they'll favor the alpha pathway even if their androgens are overall low. And that's where everyone gets confused, because they ran a blood test and they're like, my testosterone was low, like my DHEA was low. Why am I having these symptoms? My doctor said I don't have PCOS. Um, and that's where I really like the Dutch test, because we can come in and we can see which pathway those things are going down, which I think is really, really cool. And then again, I don't want to keep us here all day. I do just really want to take a brief look at your cortisol pattern to explain what was going on here, because I thought it was funny.
It was.
So the day you took your Dutch test, you had a headache.
Yep.
And we
Of
can all
course.
see the exact moment when Kaitlin took ibuprofen.
I tried to wait. So I was like, I can't take it. I'm doing this Dutch test and I know it's going to have an
Yeah.
effect on it. And then I was just like, oh my gosh, I need
Yeah.
ibuprofen.
Yeah. So we have to think about that in terms when we look at this test. So when we look at a diurnal pattern of cortisol, we like to see it go up, down, and down, right? So I hope if you can watch the video at this point so you can see the screen, this will be really helpful. But hers goes up, slightly down, and then really, really, really high right after she took ibuprofen. So if I didn't know she had taken ibuprofen, I would be like, oh my goodness, Kaitlin, like, do you have like massive parasites? Did you really spike your blood sugar? Like, did you just get into a car accident? Like, what happened to make your cortisol go that high? And that's where, again, it's important to look at this pattern, because if we were just looking at the total of your free cortisol, it's really, really, really high. But your cortisol overall isn't actually that high. It's just they take into account the total of it. So when it jumped really, really high after you took that ibuprofen, that went into the total of free cortisol. So, this is where knowing the situation of what was going on that day, making sure you're correlating everything. But I would just say overall, she definitely needs some adrenal support here. In terms of the minerals that support her adrenals. I'm not going to put her on like, I'm not saying you have adrenal fatigue, because it's more the hiccup between the hypothalamus, pituitary, and the adrenal axis. So, I know one of the things that we really talked about was getting sunlight on your eyes first thing in the morning, getting outside and getting night light, making sure you really are following that circadian pattern.
Right.
And getting those minerals in. So we really talked about all the minerals you need to support your adrenals. It's not just taking a supplement, it's like adapting that lifestyle that really supports a healthy circadian rhythm and a happy hormones and all of that kind of stuff. So there's so much more on the Dutch test. We can look at organic acids and, all that kind of stuff. But that's just a little brief snapshot of, it literally explained there, like, why you were struggling to lose weight, like why, your skin got massively like amazing after your protocol. We explained your gut issues right there. It's like your sodium was so low, your stomach acid was so low. And so it was really cool to see, okay, my symptoms and correlating with that with my lab, and then figuring out why is my lab showing this, because you can't just supplement the lab. You need to figure out why, and you need to put those pieces together. And really, that's when you can, follow your protocol and really start to see those results. So, yeah, we're going to run your retest soon, which
I
I'm really
can't
excited
wait.
about. But share a little bit what happened like after you started implementing your protocol. Well, after the tears all passed.
I know. Okay, so something else I forgot to mention about this testing is I was a weed smoker for since I was 19 years old, every single day. I am 32 now, but I quit I quit in 2021. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was 10 months sober from it. Dad passed. I retracted. It's fine. But then I knew when I was doing this testing, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is definitely going to show up in my
Yeah.
testing some way, somehow. So I think I was off of it for like a month, and I've been off of it ever since. That was
Mm-hmm.
August of last year. Um, so I'm really excited to see how that improves too, because
I
I know that that has an
yeah.
effect.
I didn't know if you were comfortable sharing that or
I
not,
totally
but
forgot about it.
yeah,
It's
no, that's
like
fine.
not even a
That's
part of my life anymore.
one of the big reasons I think why your testosterone and your DHEAS was so high, because that has been shown to raise those, because it does cause that inflammation in the body, and it,
Yeah.
it does suppress that communication. Um, So yeah, I'm excited to see what those
Yeah.
androgens look like.
Yeah, so we've got I know will help improve. And then once I started my protocol, I was emotional. I was starting to be able to feel my emotions without just
Yeah.
pushing them under the rug, which was really nice. But I lost 10 to 12 pounds, like almost fairly quickly, just like effortlessly too, which I had not done ever, well, in a really long time. I don't
Yeah.
have anxiety anymore. I mean,
Mhm.
occasionally, but not as much as I was dealing with it. I feel like my focus has been a lot better.
Mhm.
Maybe that's because I'm not smoking anymore, but I feel like I'm actually able to get things done and stick to my schedule and whatnot. Um, Gut health has definitely improved because we're improving my sodium, but I started taking digestive bitters, and I just feel like that has really helped a lot.
You you ended up on you had to go through a protocol for your gut
Yeah.
too, because
Oh,
when we
yeah.
put all
The
of your
H.
stuff
pylori.
together, you had H.
Yep.
pylori.
So
Yeah.
yep, I had to do it. My boyfriend also had to do it because it transfers through spit. So if I have it, then he
Gross.
has it. So yeah, I know it's so gross. Um, but yes, we went through that protocol and saw great things from it. Um, I think that would be the biggest things. I get headaches, but they're more tension headaches, which
Mhm.
they're not really hormonal headaches, but those have been less, maybe because I'm less stressed or managing my stress better.
Yeah.
I think also stress management has just been better.
Mhm.
I wasn't powerlifting all the time, which when I am training, I still follow my cycle. I'm a strong believer that women need to lift weights all month long, even in your luteal and your menses phase. We just switch it up differently. So I think also just paying more attention to that and, incorporating more self care, more baths. And
Mhm.
when I was training for my last meet, I made sure that on days that I was lifting heavy, I always took a magnesium potassium bath at the end of the
Mhm.
day, or did a foot soak if I couldn't get in the bathtub. Um, just because I really wanted to take care of myself and not put my body in a more stressful situation. So doing things like
Yeah.
that. I got an acupressure mat, which is awful but awesome at the same time. I remember the first time I got on it, I was like, how am I ever gonna do this? But
I am telling you,
once you get through the first
acupressure
five
mat has been
minutes,
good.
yeah, the first 5 minutes are awful, but if you can power
Yeah.
through it, then it's like, oh, okay, this is actually oddly relaxing. Um, getting massages, doing things that just were going to help bring my stress level down because, like we talked about, that was a huge thing
Yeah.
that came up in all of my tests.
Yeah.
Laying off the ibuprofen.
Yeah, we got you some leafy prana.
Yep.
Leafy prana needs to sponsor us. We talk about them all the time.
Seriously.
Like,
That
please
and the
come on.
magnesium cream from Rocasa. Now when I have a
Stuff
headache,
is so
because
good.
it's like I said, I typically get tension headaches. I just put it
Mhm.
on the back of my neck and my shoulders and it helps so much. Just as quick as ibuprofen would.
Uh, you guys can always go get yourself some Rocasa. Leah
Always.
B, like my name B, saves you 20% on your first order. But when I had mastitis, I literally came downstairs with magnesium and I was like, put this on the back of my neck because
Yeah.
I got a really bad headache, but I I don't know if it was just, because you have mastitis or whatever, but I was
Right?
just
Just
sitting
like a
there
symptom.
like, put this on my neck,
Put it
please.
all over me, please.
Yes, I'm like,
Just
fix
everywhere.
me.
That stuff is life changing.
Oh my gosh. I don't think I've tried. None of their products that I have tried, I have been like non-life changing. Like,
Yeah. Can't
I
name
mean,
one either.
even Seb started to get sick the other day. Okay, I say the other day, it was like months ago. And I said, okay, well, you need to take this, this, and this. And he goes, I already did. What's next on the list? Like he already knows.
You've turned him into a monster, but like a good
Yeah.
monster.
Yeah. I love their products. They're so good. Anyways, so that's a little bit about the labs that we run in Hormone Reset Premium Access. So Kaitlin is one of our co-coaches in there, and Hormone Reset Premium Access is literally what it sounds. It's premium access, right? You know, you are getting labs are included. You are, working with us one-on-one. Everything is very personalized, and I really think Hormone Reset Premium Access is, if you like the numbers, you'll like the labs, right? Or if you're really, really busy and you're like, I don't even have time to think about managing how to do this into my schedule, we obviously walk you through exactly step by step how to do that. Um, and the other one I really think is if you have a very severe condition that's been either severe or just very chronic, that extra step of starting with labs can be very, very useful. Um, so yeah, we've had a lot of night shift nurses, we've had a lot of moms, a lot of business owners, people that are very, very busy, helping adapt their schedule. A lot of clients with endometriosis, Hashimoto's, um, mold illness, chronic fatigue, brain fog, all very common things that we deal with, can't lose weight no matter what, extreme bloating, extreme skin issues. We just had a client, she's just graduated, and she literally was like, Leah, I I just was constipated like her whole life. Like she would never be able to have bowel movements without using like suppositories or like heavy dose like magnesium citrate or something. And she's like, I have bowel movements by myself, like all by myself in the morning. I just go. And I
That's such
truly
a big
like,
win.
it is like, do you understand how life changing regular bowel movements are?
So life changing.
Oh, and that was the root cause of her acne. Like her skin cleared up. She's like, I've never had like clear skin before. But toxins got to get out somewhere, right? If we're not pooping
Yeah,
them out, they're going to come out through your skin. So
it's true.
something to keep in mind. Um, well, this was fun. So we
So
should do this
fun.
again.
Yeah, we'll have to when I get my retest done
Yeah.
and just see the improvements.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm
It
so
will be
excited.
fun. All right, ladies. I'll chat with you later. As always, you can go to the link in the show notes to apply for premium access, Hormone Reset Premium Access, or you can go to leahbruggeman.com and apply there as well, all the places.